Ladies and gentlemen, as the tariffs continue, the pressure mounts on Canada, and there are people and Canadians within the province of Alberta that are saying, we love Donald Trump, we want to join the United States as the 51st state. And could Alberta seceding from Canada potentially create a domino effect with the other provinces in Western Canada, possibly Saskatchewan? And if you take Saskatchewan, you're probably going to have to take British Columbia, even though British Columbia, I'm sure, not really all that interested in becoming part of the United States. Donald Trump could certainly smooth things over if he incentivized joining the U.S. in terms of economic value. The idea of the one-for-one exchange rate, Canadian dollar, which is right now like 69 cents versus US dollar. You make that a one-to-one exchange rate, that's a lot more money for Canadians. That is a lot more land for the United States. And then you also would look at the upper territories. But by the way, it's not just land, it's also natural resources. It's also strategic positioning. If you do take the three territories in northern Canada, that would be Nunavut, Yukon, and Northwest Territories. You would have control of Baffin Bay. You would have full control as long as you also took Greenland of the Davis Strait, and you would have all of the upper Arctic area above North America and extending to the east over the Atlantic Ocean, because you'd also have Greenland. So that's why this is so important. Look at this. We want to live in America's 51st state. The Canadians pledging their loyalty to Trump. Now, look, we do this thing where they take 5 people and they're like, we want to join the U.S. Obviously, it's not all Canadians. It's not all of the people of Alberta. I would say it's a minority at this point in Alberta, although we haven't really seen a recent poll. Everyone references the poll that was done in December in between Trump winning and him entering the White House for a second term during Biden's lame duck period. They conducted a poll. Would you be okay with being annexed by the United States? Would you want to be part of the U.S.? And it was 90-10 no for the Canadians. But of course, Alberta, because it's more conservative, would probably be about 70-30. But now it's probably like 50-50. Experts say it's very close in terms of these people wanting to leave Canada. Now, there's a few things that have to happen, and I talked about this a few days ago. I think you could argue the biggest one is tariffs, but it's mainly the election and tariffs. Those are the two biggest ones. Because the tariffs that are on right now, that Trump has on, and possibly more coming on April 2nd, April Fool's there, but no, it's not April Fool's. He's going to put reciprocal tariffs on all the countries that have tariffs against the United States. If Trump commits to the tariffs against Canada, it is going to weaken the Canadian economy. It is going to make the people of Canada more desperate. It is going to devalue Canadian currency even more, to the point to where some of these provinces, especially the more conservative provinces like Saskatchewan, like Alberta, they're right next to each other. They're both above, like Montana and North Dakota. Alberta and Saskatchewan are. Alberta is the western side, Saskatchewan's the eastern side, and then to the west of Alberta is British Columbia. But when you look at this picture, these conservative provinces are just going to get tired of the tariffs. They're going to get tired of their economy being horrible, and they're going to say, let's end this. The United States is way more powerful than us. They could help protect us a lot easier, and that's what these people are talking about. And there's an interesting look. You can see this talking about Canada's military. This is what they're arguing. They're saying, well, we really cannot defend ourselves based on our population versus total land area that we have to cover. You can see active military personnel, the United States versus Canada versus the size of the country. Canada slightly bigger in overall size than the US, but the United States obviously extremely more powerful and a lot more active personnel to defend any area of the US. And so if you are Alberta, you look at something like that, and look, we're not going to say, well, like, the United States is such an amazing deterrent for Canada. Like, if Canada got invaded, the United States, it's direct war with the US if anything happens to Canada. So that's why they think they can kind of have this, a lot of them think they're insulated, like they don't need a big military because of the United States. But then they also complain about the United States. So it's like, this is the problem. We have to do this trade. We have to be very nice to Canada. Yes, Canada gives us a good trade deal. People say, well, that's because they're nice. Well, no, they have to give us a good trade deal. We could invade and annex them by noon tomorrow if we wanted to. It's just the dynamics of the two countries. And it's not me going against the Canadians. Their immigration's been out of control. They're very liberal. But I don't have anything against the Canadians. It's just the dynamics of it. But if you're in Alberta, and you see, and this is the other thing, you've got the tariffs. If Trump sticks to the tariffs, it's going to weaken the Canadian economy. And then you've got the election. Whenever the election happens, right now it's scheduled to happen in mid-October, October 20th, I believe, but it's probably going to get moved up. They're saying right now the Canadian government, the Liberals, they're trying to delay the election from happening sooner, even though Trudeau was historically hated. The Liberal Party they had like a 12%, 14% approval rating with Trudeau. They forced him out. And now they've got Carney, the World Economic Forum pawn in, and he is denying, he doesn't even want to meet with Trump. And basically that scenario, it's like they didn't even elect him. It's basically like the VP going in American terms. Like if something happened to Trump, it'd be J.D. Vance. And you could say, well, he wasn't elected. That's honestly what happened with Canada and their situation in terms of Carney. But this is something, look, there's going to be citizens in Alberta. There's going to be citizens in Saskatchewan. You can take a look at this. This is really what we're looking at. This is something from 2018, but the actual story I don't want to talk about. I want to talk about New Western Alliance. You can see all the provinces it includes. It does not include Nunavut. The U.S. would want Nunavut because we'd want all of the control of the Northwest Passage. We'd want more access to the Hudson Bay. We would want full control of Baffin Bay. And then there's Greenland right there with the Davis Strait. We get all of that control in the Arctic. It's just an Arctic empire for Trump. That's Trump's final goal for the Arctic as an empire. You need Nunavut if you want that. Or maybe, you know, the thing is with Canada, I've said Canada is always a long shot. But if you do get this break off within the west of Canada, it's more realistic. We don't want Ontario. We don't want Quebec. We don't want New Brunswick. We don't want Newfoundland. We don't want Nova Scotia. We would want, and it's like, well, because they're liberal, but also you don't want to add that much in terms of population. You really don't. Trust me. But British Columbia is liberal, and I would say take them as well. You can't have them isolated. You would have to take all of these western provinces and all the 3 territories in northern Canada, and they would fall like dominoes. The territories would probably be, I wouldn't say they're harder to get, but it would be like almost a collapse from Canada to acquire those, because those are very liberal areas, but they're very smallly populated. So it would be some deal with Canada to where they would sell them to us or something. But I mean, if that happens, then all of Canada might totally collapse. I mean, you could argue Quebec would become independent at that point. They've tried to leave several different times. That's why they created a law in the 90s. They can vote to leave. Like Alberta, if they have a referendum, they can vote and potentially leave. I'm not saying they would vote for it right now, but I'm saying as the economic conditions continue to dissipate within Canada with these tariffs imposed, and now you've got the tariffs with China. Now they're saying, well, Canada's going to do reciprocal tariffs on China. You're battling with both China and the United States. This is not good for your economy. It's just not. And that's why they're trying to kiss up to the EU. And Carney is like a pawn of the EU. It's really bad. And so he's visited there already. Him and Starmer are obsessed with each other. And so my guess is they're going to be forced to get closer to the EU. And it's like they want to join the EU. They're obsessed with them. I mean, the EU is basically, it's going to be like an extension NATO if the United States leaves NATO. That's what the EU is without the UK, obviously, in the EU. But look, this is something I think can happen. You could say, well, it's a long shot. Well, yes, but if the conditions are right and Trump keeps the tariffs on, this is what I think probably will happen, and it'll be viewed as a major win for Trump. But the Canadian government is not going to be able to handle this at a certain point. So what's going to happen is you're going to get the Canadian government saying, we will remove all of our tariffs on dairy. That's what Trump was referencing, 250, 270% tariffs on milk coming from the United States to Canada. They put that tariff so the U.S. doesn't flood their markets and they protect their local farmers, but it doesn't really matter. It's 270% tariff. This is what's going to happen. I'll be honest. If the Canadians are smart, they're going to say, no, Mas, we can't handle this. We're going to remove all of our tariffs. If you remove your tariffs, we're going to remove ours, and we're going to give you a better trade deal. We already have to renegotiate, or the trade deal is up for review in 2026. We're going to give you a better deal on lumber. We're going to give you a better deal on energy. We're going to give you a better deal on oil and natural gas coming from Alberta, and we're going to give you more access to rare earths and minerals within our upper territories. And Trump's just got a huge win if that ends up happening, because that's exactly what it was for. And then you say, well, no, it was for more domestic production. Well, yes, we could get that too if we wanted. If Trump decided to keep the tariffs on, we would get more domestic production. But if I was Trump, I would still want trade with Canada, but I would want trade on America's terms, fully on America's terms. And by doing this, and I've talked about the economic situation in the United States, and there's going to be some turbulence. This is totally normal. Trump had to force inflation down. The interest rates will be falling. Probably not. When is the next meeting? Tomorrow? They're going to stay the same tomorrow. I can pretty much guarantee it, which is frustrating because inflation came lower than expected. But I've seen the betting. They're going to stay the same. May 9th, they're going to be lowered. And by the way, especially people are like, oh, it's going to be a recession. Well, apparently, no, now it's not going to be a recession based on the recent GDP estimates. But even if it was a recession, it really wouldn't matter because it will lower inflation. And if you get inflation lower, the interest rates lower. Trump knows the economy is about to be stimulated significantly with the tax cuts that he's implementing, with all of the foreign investment into the country. You've got so many different things. You've already got oil down. We don't even have updated gas prices because they haven't done the refills. Think about what gas is going to be at. In my area, it's $2.89. It's going to be like $2.69 by next week when they start doing the refills and redistributing the new gas at the prices, because gas fell like oil fell like 7%. Crude oil fell about 7% 2 weeks ago. So this is huge stuff what Trump is doing. This economy will be amazing probably within 6 to 12 months. I know economics. I know how this stuff works, unless there's some crazy war that breaks out. Oh, and we also have the war ending. We've got the war ending and maybe the situation in the Middle East. You know, Trump has been conducting military operations on Yemen because of a rebel group that is disrupting international trade by blocking important shipping lanes that connect to the Indian Ocean. They've been harassing ships in the Red Sea. And so that's mainly an international issue. And then people always say, oh, it's just about Israel. No, the UK is also bombing the Houthis as well. Think about that. So it's not, Trump is releasing things. He's exposing Israel with these JFK files. We'll see what happens with that. But Trump is really in control here. So when it comes to this, listen, the economy is going to be in an amazing place. The wars are going to be ending. And it takes it's a little turbulence. There's a little turbulence over this next month because there's going to be reciprocal tariffs coming into place on April 2nd. So let's ride it out. Let's calm down. If Trump keeps the tariffs on, we're possibly going to look at maybe annexing Alberta, because Alberta is like, you know, these people are like, we need protection. And again, it's one of those things to where Canada already knows they kind of have protection from the United States. There's no country that's going to be invading Canada. It's just not. If you invade Canada, the United States will remove you. So they already do have protection. So that's why a lot of their citizens don't really care about our military protection that we could give them, because we already basically give it to them in the sense of, we're not going to take kindly to a country invading Canada. It's just not going to happen. And also, what would the purpose of it? So that's why the Canadians really, there's not a big appetite, and they're all liberal too. And this is a Trump administration that's conservative, and the country of the United States is a lot more conservative than Canada. But I'm just saying, they already think they're protected by the United States. If they actually feared for themselves, then you've got a fallout situation where it's all hands on deck. They would be like, yes, please annex us, daddy. Please protect us. You know, if there was a crazy world war or something like that. But because they already think they're getting protection. The problem is we're protecting them with limited benefit because they give us a good trade deal, but we want everything dictated on the United States terms, basically, based off of this relationship we have with Canada, where we're basically their dad in the sense of military, in the sense of economy. And listen, they've got a ton of resources. I respect Canada as a country. I don't respect them allowing their country to be invaded by foreign third world immigrants that have destroyed their culture, especially their big cities. I don't appreciate that. I'm trying to help Canadians, and they allow this to happen. It's the liberalism. But no, I like Canada. There's nothing wrong with it. But they're a fine country. But we want things dictated on our terms. That's why we've got a president like Trump. People galvanize around Trump. He's a real leader. He stands up for the country. He doesn't care about this sob story with the EU liberal bullshit. Oh, we're a small country. You can't annex Greenland. Well, no, this is going to happen because it's for the betterment of the United States. And Donald Trump has the loyalty to the United States. And this is what's going to be happening. And people argue about the Middle East. That's a different situation than this. This is loyalty to the United States and doing what's right by America. And it's like, well, it's hurting the economy. Well, it's a short-term problem. It's going to be a long-term solution. You've got a short-term problem that's been produced by tariffs. I agree. Tariffs do hurt the economy. They hurt the stock market short-term, absolutely. But it's a long-term fix with domestic production increase or Canada just giving us the most sweetheart trade deal imaginable. Which one is it going to be? Either one is good for Trump, but it just takes time to play out. Think about it. So guys, we'll have to see what happens in terms of this, but that's going to do it for this video. Make sure you follow me on X. Link to that's always in the description.